Indigenous Rights Radio, because knowledge is power.
When I looked up the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, I came across a quote by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, which reads, quote, "The ancient poison of racism is alive and kicking in every community, society, country, and region of the world. The antidote is unity and action." End quote. While countries like South Africa and the United States are known worldwide for racism, the truth is the same problems exist everywhere in the world. The International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, observed each year on March 21st, marks the anniversary of the Sharpeville Massacre, when police in Sharpeville, South Africa, opened fire on a peaceful demonstration against apartheid pass laws, killing 69 people and injuring many more. Established by the United Nations General Assembly, the day serves as a global call to confront racism, promote equality, and protect human dignity. It highlights the lasting impact of racial injustice while also recognizing progress achieved through international cooperation, including the eventual dismantling of apartheid in South Africa. The observance reinforces commitments to fundamental human rights as outlined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and encourages governments, organizations, and individuals to take active steps toward eliminating discrimination in all its forms, from systemic inequality and xenophobia to everyday prejudice and exclusion. Now, Indigenous peoples in particular continue to face systemic discrimination rooted in historical colonization and ongoing social inequality. They are often marginalized politically, with limited representation in decision-making processes that affect their lands and livelihoods. Economically, many indigenous communities experience higher rates of poverty, unemployment, and a lack of access to quality education and healthcare. Their cultural practices, languages, and identities are frequently undervalued or suppressed, leading to loss of heritage over time. In addition, indigenous lands are often exploited for natural resources without proper consent, resulting in displacement and environmental degradation. This combination of social, economic, and cultural discrimination reinforces cycles of disadvantage that are difficult to break. So for this special podcast, here are some examples of discrimination that indigenous peoples have to go through. The following is an excerpt from an article by Brenda L. Gunn, Associate Professor, Robson Hall, Faculty of Law, University of Manitoba, Canada, and is called "Ignored to Death: Systemic Racism in the Canadian Healthcare System." Let us read a quote from this article. Brian Sinclair, an Indigenous man from Manitoba in central Canada, died in the emergency department of Winnipeg's Health Sciences Centre, or HSC, in September 2008. He was 45 years old. He had sought care from a family physician at a primary care clinic. The physician referred him to the emergency department of HSC, located just a few blocks away, for further care. Brian Sinclair was sent by taxi to HSC. In his wheelchair, he entered the emergency department of a most comprehensive hospital in Manitoba. After being ignored, unattended, and uncared for the next 34 hours, he died of complications of a treatable bladder infection. The Manitoba government refused to call an inquiry into Brian Sinclair's death and instead ordered an inquest. Initially, the presiding judge said questions about racism, poverty, and disability would play a significant role when the inquest considered how similar deaths could be prevented in the future. Manitoba's Attorney General also stated that the inquest would address broader issues raised by Indigenous groups. In a different case, in 2021, an article from The Guardian explains that the death of Joyce Echequan, an indigenous Atikameku woman in a Quebec hospital, was found by a coroner to be a clear example of systemic racism in healthcare. Despite seeking help for a known heart condition, hospital staff assumed she was a drug addict, ignored her symptoms, and subjected her to verbal abuse while she lay dying, an incident she recorded on video. The coroner concluded that these prejudiced assumptions led to inadequate care and that she likely would have survived if she had been treated without bias. Her death, officially caused by a treatable condition, was therefore considered preventable and highlighted broader patterns of discrimination faced by indigenous people in medical systems, sparking public outrage and renewed calls for governments to recognize and address systemic racism. Moving to Australia, a 2025 article by abc.net.au reported that a national survey in Australia found a significant rise in racism experienced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, with many reporting that discrimination is a common part of daily life. The study, which included both Indigenous and non-Indigenous participants, showed increasing incidents of racial prejudice in workplaces and public settings, alongside concerns that existing anti-racism laws and policies are not being effectively enforced. Experts and advocates highlighted the need for stronger action from governments and businesses, including improved workplace practices, better legal protections, and greater accountability, emphasizing that without meaningful change, racism against Indigenous people will continue to persist and undermine social equality. And so, many more examples could be taken from other places around the world where it can be proven that Indigenous peoples around the world still experience racial discrimination. Let us end this podcast with a quote from UN.org. Quote, "Racism continues to affect communities, politics, media, sport, and the digital environment across the world, with rising racist rhetoric, discrimination against migrants and minority groups, and persistent inequalities rooted in historical power imbalances. Conflicts and crises in several regions, including Myanmar, the occupied Palestinian territory, and Sudan, also demonstrate how discrimination and dehumanization can fuel instability and injustice. Addressing these challenges requires sustained commitment from governments, businesses, media, civil society, and international organizations such as the United Nations Human Rights Office to implement anti-discrimination laws, strengthen accountability, collect and analyze data, reform education, support victims, and ensure meaningful participation of affected communities in decision-making. Inspired by the legacy of global rights leaders such as Desmond Tutu, Marielle Franco, Claudette Colvin, and Jesse Jackson, the international community continues to work toward dismantling systemic racism and building societies founded on dignity, equality, and justice for all." End quote. For more on the rights of Indigenous peoples, visit cs.org and follow Cultural Survival on social media.